Well, we are here with Joe Karlgaard, the Athletic Director at Rice University. Thank you for joining us. And obviously, a lot of talk about leadership and styles. And so do you have a mantra that you sort of live by in your leadership style?
Well, I've tried to adapt my style to different situations. And that's some advice I got several years back from Dutch Bogman, who was running the D1 AD Association. And he always maintained that you know, you have to be able to be nimble and shift around depending on what the situation calls for. So I'd say I'm probably have more of an adaptive leadership style. I'm not somebody who clings to one particular mantra or idea, but I think depending on what the situation is, I want to be ready to serve the people around me.
Excellent. You student athlete, coach, then get into administration. What did you learn along the way that maybe helped shape the kind of leader that you are?
I learned that I think probably the biggest lesson I learned is that you have to have some degree of humility to be a good leader. I think people who are willing to be vulnerable and admit their flaws are probably able to grow a little bit faster and a little more easily. And I think about my first AD situation several years back at Oberlin College when I got a break at age 30 to be an athletic director with virtually no experience. And I made so many mistakes the first 3 years that I was there, and you know, I didn't try to defend those mistakes, other than the fact that I was young and had no experience. And I think that really allowed me to progress and grow in my second 3 years and then parlay that into other opportunities down the road. So
always growing, right? And probably still growing today. I mean, it is just a continual journey.
Absolutely. You're never gonna know everything. And for my mentors and people that have helped me out along the way, they've always referred to this as a journey. And of course, we want to win everything all the time. We want to provide the best experience possible for our student athletes. But we're always aspiring to that, even if we never quite achieve it. So you've got to be able to enjoy all the ups and downs along the way and be able to roll with that if you're going to be successful in this business.
When did you know you wanted to be an athletic director?
Well, I grew up in North Dakota, and my father was a high school athletic director at the public schools for many years, and so I grew up on his hip at track meets and basketball games and football games and hockey games and so on and so forth. And so it was always kind of in my blood. And then I was a student athlete at Stanford and ran track, and that's really where I fell in love with college athletics. So I combined those two experiences, and I knew pretty early after college that this is what I wanted to do. First, I thought maybe I wanted to be a track coach, but I really like kind of the strategy and planning involved in being an AD.
What is your biggest challenge as an AD from a leadership perspective? And I mean, obviously there are a ton of stakeholders for an athletic director. There's a lot of moving parts to the job. So what do you find is, you know, the biggest challenge of the profession?
Well, I think, you know, being in a group of 5 school, there are revenue challenges that I think are a little bit unique to some of us. I think that as you're trying to implement change, it's kind of about, for me, it's about how quickly do you try to bring people around to new ideas and ways of thinking. And I think you have to be aggressive with that, but I think you also have to understand that that's probably going to have a long tail. I mean, building a real culture and changing a culture takes a long time to do, particularly if you want to do it the right way and if you want to try and bring the people that are already part of the organization along with you, which is my preferred style. And so you have to have some patience with that. So I'd say having the patience to really turn something around is a challenge probably that whether you're FBS or FCS or Power 5 or Group of 5, it's probably true for all of us.
When you mentioned change there, change tends to be tough for people.
Sure.
So how do you approach that? Because that is so critical of how you bring people with you to make sure that the change is headed in the direction that you want it to go.
Well, I think it starts with a lot of listening. I think you have to listen to the people that care about your program, and that'll be folks external to the program and then your employees and your student athletes, and find out what they think the issues are, what they think we do particularly well, and then craft a vision from that. And then you have to continue to reinforce the vision over and over again. I think one of the difficult things about being a leader is repeating the same thing over and over and over again with the same level of enthusiasm as the first time you delivered it. And so but that's really, really important if you want change to take hold. So I think if you come in and you try and push a top-down philosophy, that you're probably less likely to actually change people's minds. But if you come in with an open mind and you listen and you try and assemble the different ideas and perspectives that you've heard into a compelling vision, then you can make it happen.
I was talking to some athletic directors, and it's a demand, I don't want to say a job, because it's not a job, it's a way of life, but it's demanding. And you have young children. I mean, how do you, and what role does that play? I mean, you need that support system. You have young children. They want dad too. How do you manage that?
Well, I learned a while back that I'm probably not going to be able to satisfy everyone. I have a number of people who have demands for my time, and they're always usually wanting a bit more, and so I've got to try and figure out how to, sort of parse out my day and my weeks and months and deliver to people what they need. I believe in a highly integrated lifestyle. I think it's important that you not separate out work and home and social activities, that you try and weave it into one life. And that's worked well for us. Having my twin boys and my 9-year-old at football games along with my wife is very important to me, because it affords me an opportunity to spend time with them and see them, and they get to have some fun with that too. I've heard a number of people say at this conference and at other places what a wonderful environment for your children to grow up in around a college campus, particularly one like Rice. And so that's how I try to handle that. But you also have to cut yourself some slack, I think, as an AD, and realize that when you oversee a group of coaches and employees and hundreds of student athletes, that you're never going to be able to meet everybody's need. And so you have to be very comfortable with the approach that you take.
And lastly, what advice do you give to others who hope to be an AD someday?
I think persistence is key. Don't get discouraged. I think getting that first job is really probably the hardest move. Either your first job in college athletics or your first AD job. And I just got really lucky. I was in the right place at the right time with a president who was willing to roll the dice on me. Not everybody gets that lucky, so I'm very fortunate in that regard. But I think continuing to engage your mentors, to engage people across the industry, to make sure that you understand that the topics of the day is really important for young, aspiring athletics directors, and just keep at it and don't get discouraged, because everybody wants to work in college athletics, so it's really hard to break in, but once you do, the cream tends to rise to the top.
Anything I didn't have the good sense to ask you about leadership or Rice or the way you operate that you think would be valuable for people to know?
I think you did hit all the sort of relevant topics. If you're ever fortunate to be an athletics director, whether it's at Division III, II, or I, it's an incredibly rewarding experience. And one thing I wouldn't lose sight of is don't disconnect from the student athletes. I used to be in coaching, and I had a kind of a daily interaction with, of course, all the runners on our team. And I really enjoyed that. And I think my first few years of being an AD or being an administrator, I got away from that a little bit. And I realized that I missed it. And I'm constantly trying to get more in front of our student athletes and find out, what their issues are, what makes them tick, and how we can help them better. But if you can do that, it's really, at least for me, very personally rewarding.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Katie.
your time.